In a kingdom of splendor and wisdom, there was a man who seemed to have it all: unparalleled wealth, fame, and a heart that sought the truth. However, beneath the surface of this extraordinary king, a shadow was forming. Solomon, the man who amassed 1,000 women, was not just an icon of wisdom, he was also the protagonist of a story of downfall and disillusionment. Like an artist who paints a magnificent picture, but simultaneously hides strokes of darkness, Solomon teaches us profound lessons about choices and consequences. Have you ever stopped to think about what it really means to have everything? What happens when the pursuit of pleasure and power overshadows the pursuit of truth? Solomon's decisions were like seeds planted in fertile soil, but what did he reap? What happened when wisdom allowed itself to be seduced by crooked paths? Get ready for a journey that goes beyond superficial understanding. The story of this king is an invitation to reflection. What did he lose in gaining the world? Stay tuned, for the revelation of hidden truths is about to change everything you thought about power, love, and the fragility of wisdom. The wisdom of Solomon. Solomon, the son of David, is often remembered as the wisest man who ever lived. His wisdom is a central theme in various religious and cultural traditions, often cited as an example of discernment and justice. But what truly defines this wisdom? In biblical accounts, he is distinguished by his ability to make just and thoughtful decisions, as demonstrated in several situations, such as the famous story of the two women who both claimed to be the mother of a baby. Solomon, with cunning, proposed that the baby be cut in half, revealing the true mother by observing her reaction. This episode exemplifies how he used his wisdom not only to resolve conflicts, but also to promote justice. Solomon's wisdom, however, was not limited to judicial decisions. He is also credited as the author of many of the Proverbs, a collection of sayings that reflect moral and practical teachings aimed at everyday life. These proverbs offer guidance on how to live virtuously and prudently, addressing themes such as the importance of knowledge, humility, and the fear of God. Thus, his wisdom extends beyond mere intellect, embodying a worldview that values morality and ethics. It is important to note that Solomon's wisdom was not just a personal gift, but also a divine one. According to the biblical narrative, when Solomon ascended to the throne, God appeared to him in a dream and offered him anything he desired. Instead of asking for wealth or longevity, Solomon requested wisdom to govern his people well. This choice is seen as a testament to his character and his concern for the nation's well-being, showing that his wisdom was closely tied to a greater purpose. Moreover, Solomon's wisdom had a lasting impact in his time and beyond. He not only ruled his kingdom with discernment, but also attracted wise men and scholars from other nations, making Jerusalem a center of learning and culture. The fame of his wisdom spread far and wide, reaching even the Queen of Sheba, who made a long journey to test him with difficult questions. This visit not only reinforced his reputation, but also promoted significant cultural exchanges, highlighting Solomon's role as a leader who transcended borders. However, Solomon's story also teaches us that wisdom alone does not guarantee righteousness. Although he was an admired ruler, his trajectory reveals that even the wisest can falter. Solomon's wisdom throughout his reign was a powerful tool, but it was also tested and at times diluted by his personal choices and external influences. This aspect of his life reminds us that wisdom must be constantly cultivated and applied responsibly. Solomon's 1,000 women. Solomon is often associated with an astonishing number of women, 700 wives and 300 concubines according to the scriptures. This reality is not just a curious detail. It reflects a complex aspect of his life and reign. Marital alliances were common in antiquity and served political purposes, ensuring peace and cooperation between different nations. Thus, Solomon's many wives can be seen as a strategy to consolidate his power and expand his influence. However, this multiplicity of relationships brought significant challenges. The presence of so many women from different backgrounds and cultures also meant the introduction of diverse religious practices into Israel. Many of his wives were from foreign nations and worshipped different gods, which began to influence Solomon and his people. The temptation to adopt these pagan rituals and cults led to an erosion of the monotheistic devotion and religious purity that had been established by his predecessors. The impact of these relationships on Solomon's personal life was profound. The Bible recounts that over time he turned away from the God of Israel, drawn by the beliefs and customs of his wives. This change of heart was one of the factors that contributed to his downfall, as idol worship and the practice of pagan rituals became common among the Israelites. This estrangement not only damaged his relationship with God, but also had disastrous consequences for the kingdom, which began to divide under the pressure of external influences. Moreover, Solomon's relationship with his 1,000 women illustrates the complexities of power and governance. Although he was an admired king, his personal and familial choices had political repercussions. The divided loyalties among his wives could have generated rivalries and conflicts, undermining social cohesion and the stability of the kingdom. Thus, the number of women in his life was not just a matter of opulence, but also of managing alliances and maintaining peace in a diverse territory. Finally, the story of Solomon's 1,000 women serves as a warning about the dangers of excess and indulgence. The pursuit of pleasure and personal satisfaction without consideration for the consequences can lead to decay. Solomon, who began his reign with such wisdom and discernment, ended up lost in a maze of relationships and deities that drew him away from his original devotion. This aspect of his life underscores the importance of maintaining balance and remembering that even the most powerful can lose themselves in their own choices. The construction of Solomon's Temple. The construction of Solomon's Temple is one of the most significant milestones of his reign. This temple was not only a place of worship, but also a symbol of unity and national identity for the people of Israel. The project began in response to the desire of David, Solomon's father, to build a place for the Lord. However, it was Solomon who brought this vision to fruition, dedicating considerable time and resources to create a space that reflected the greatness of God and the importance of Israelite faith. The construction of the temple was a monumental undertaking involving the mobilization of thousands of workers and the use of precious materials such as cedar from Lebanon and high-quality stones. The temple was designed with elaborate details and ornamentation that symbolized the glory of God. Every aspect of the construction had profound significance, from the altars to the sacred utensils, all intended to honor the deity and provide a proper space for worship. Beyond its religious significance, the temple also represented the centralization of Solomon's political power. By building a grand place of worship, he established Jerusalem as the spiritual heart of the nation. This not only solidified his position as king, but also united the people around a sacred site, promoting a sense of identity and belonging. The temple became a focal point for religious festivities and a source of national pride. The symbolism of Solomon's temple extends beyond its physical walls. It is often seen as a representation of God's presence among his people. The site was considered the point where heaven and earth met, and the divine presence dwelled in the Holy of Holies, the most sacred space in the temple. This spiritual connection provided the people of Israel with a sense of security and protection, knowing that God was near and active in their lives. However, the construction of the temple also raised questions about sustainability and responsibility. The significant investment of resources and labor could have been seen as an ostentatious effort at a time when many still faced hardships. This duality between the pursuit of greatness and the need to care for the people is a theme that permeates Solomon's story and serves as a reminder that leadership must always consider the well-being of all. The fall of Solomon. Solomon's journey is, in many ways, a story of rise and fall. Although he began his reign with great wisdom and success, various factors contributed to his decline. One of the main elements was his gradual departure from devotion to God, influenced by the practices of his foreign wives and the introduction of pagan cults. This spiritual deviation not only compromised his personal relationship with God, but also had devastating consequences for the kingdom. The loss of Solomon's original wisdom can be seen as a reflection of his lack of vigilance over his own choices. He, who once sought divine wisdom, began to be swayed by pleasures and external influences. The Bible recounts that in his later years, Solomon built altars for foreign gods, such as Moloch and Ashtoreth, deviating from the worship that should have been exclusively dedicated to the Lord. This betrayal of his faith and his people created an environment of division and instability. Furthermore, Solomon's fall was also due to his management of the kingdom. The accumulation of wealth and the ostentation of power led to increased oppression among the people. The imposition, the alliance with Hiram of Tyre. The alliance between Solomon and Hiram of Tyre is a fascinating example of how strategic partnerships can influence significant projects. Hiram, the king of Tyre, was renowned for his expertise in trade and construction, particularly in relation to the famous cedars of Lebanon. This type of wood was highly valued at the time, being essential for the construction of grand buildings. Solomon, in his quest for quality materials for the temple, saw in Hiram an opportunity to establish a mutually beneficial relationship. Thus, the union of these two leaders not only facilitated the construction of the temple, but also solidified commercial ties that would benefit both nations. The agreement between Solomon and Hiram involved not only the exchange of materials, but also the sharing of knowledge and skills. The workers from Tyre were experienced in naval construction and carpentry, which brought a high standard to the temple project. This collaboration between Israel and Tyre resulted not only in a magnificent building, but also symbolized an era of peace and prosperity, where different cultures could unite to achieve common goals. The temple, therefore, became a symbol not only of worship, but also of cooperation between nations. Beyond the practical aspects, Solomon's alliance with Hiram had profound political implications. In a period when Israel needed to assert itself on the international stage, this partnership served as a declaration of strength and stability. By aligning with a respected city-state like Tyre, Solomon sent a clear message that his reign was strong and capable of forming alliances that favored economic and cultural development. This diplomatic relationship could also be seen as a way to protect Israel against common enemies, creating a power axis that would strengthen the region. Hiram's contribution was not limited to the supply of wood and labor. He also sent artisans and master craftsmen to assist in the construction. These professionals brought advanced techniques that enhanced the temple's construction and consequently elevated Israel's architectural standards. The result was a building that served not only as a place of worship, but also as an architectural marvel that attracted visitors from all parts of the world, solidifying Israel's reputation. Finally, the alliance with Hiram of Tyre exemplifies how collaboration between leaders can lead to lasting results. Solomon's temple was not just a physical structure, it symbolized the union of efforts and the ability of different nations to work together for a common good. This alliance left a legacy that would echo through the centuries, influencing relations between nations to this day, where international cooperation is still seen as key to success in various projects. The role of women in politics. The role of women in Solomon's court is a fascinating subject that reveals much about the dynamics of power in ancient Israel. Although society at the time was predominantly patriarchal, the women around Solomon played significant roles, often influencing political and social decisions. Solomon's wives, especially those from foreign nations, were more than just consorts. They were key players in the diplomatic alliances that strengthened the kingdom. The wives of Solomon, coming from diverse cultures and regions, brought with them not only their heritage, but also their political influences. For example, marriage to women from neighboring nations helped seal peace agreements and avoid conflicts. These marital alliances were a common practice among leaders of the time, and in Solomon's case, they allowed him to expand his influence without the need for war. Women, therefore, became instruments of diplomacy, playing a role that is often overlooked in historical narratives. In addition to their diplomatic functions, the women in Solomon's court also had a direct impact on culture and religion. Many of these wives brought their gods and religious practices, which complicated the maintenance of monotheism in Israel. This cultural and religious diversity added a layer of complexity to the court environment, where women were not just observers, but active participants in shaping the religious identity of the people. Solomon, being a wise and astute king, recognized the importance of his wives and their influences. He knew that to govern a diverse kingdom, it was necessary to consider the opinions and desires of the women around him. This recognition, though uncommon for his time, demonstrates a level of emotional and political intelligence that helped solidify his power. Thus, the women in the court were not just secondary figures, but fundamental parts of the machinery of government. Finally, analyzing the role of women in Solomon's court leads us to reflect on how history has been narrated. Often, the focus is on the achievements of men, while the contributions of women are relegated to the background. However, by considering the impact these women had on politics and society, we can see that they played a crucial role in shaping the kingdom and maintaining Solomon's power, challenging traditional notions of what it means to be an influential figure in history. The wealth and prosperity of the kingdom. The wealth and prosperity of Solomon's kingdom are often celebrated as one of the most remarkable aspects of his reign. During his rule, Israel experienced a period of economic abundance that not only elevated the kingdom's status, but also attracted the attention of other nations. The accumulation of wealth resulted from a combination of prosperous trade, the exploitation of natural resources, and efficient administration. Solomon established trade routes that connected Israel to neighboring countries, allowing for the exchange of goods and ideas. One of the main factors that contributed to this prosperity was Solomon's ability to negotiate. He established trade alliances with neighboring powers such as Egypt and Tyre, facilitating the exchange of precious goods like gold, spices, and fine fabrics. These trade relationships not only enriched the kingdom, but also allowed for cultural exchange, bringing innovations and techniques that enhanced the local economy. Solomon's wealth became legendary, and tales of his opulence spread, attracting visitors from all over the world, including the famous Queen of Sheba. However, wealth also brought challenges. As Solomon's kingdom became more prosperous, expectations increased. The need to maintain this high standard of living led to higher taxes and the intensive exploitation of natural resources. While many enjoyed the benefits of wealth, others, especially the poor, began to feel the burden of this prosperity. This social inequality started to generate discontent, which over time would become an important factor in the kingdom's downfall. Additionally, Solomon's opulence also exposed him to criticism. Many saw the accumulation of wealth as a sign of vanity and excess. The king's fame and immense wealth attracted not only admirers, but also envious detractors. The ostentation of his palace in the temple contributed to an image of a king who, despite his wisdom, was drifting away from the simple values that many of his subjects cherished. This disconnect between the king and the people would become a recurring theme in the narratives about his life. In the end, the wealth and prosperity of Solomon's kingdom left an ambivalent legacy. On the one hand, his reign is remembered as a golden age marked by cultural, architectural, and commercial achievements. On the other hand, the way this wealth was managed and the social consequences that resulted from it serve as a warning about the dangers of excess. Balancing the celebration of Solomon's accomplishments with the recognition of his flaws is crucial to understanding the complexity of his reign. The legacy of Solomon. Solomon's legacy is vast and multifaceted, reflecting not only his achievements, but also the challenges he faced and the lessons learned. He is often remembered as one of the wisest kings in history, and this wisdom is manifested in several literary works attributed to him, such as the Book of Proverbs and the Book of Ecclesiastes. These works not only offer practical advice for everyday life, but also reflect a deep understanding of human nature and the dilemmas of existence. An important aspect of Solomon's legacy is the construction of the temple, which became the center of worship in Israel. The temple was not just a building, it symbolized God's presence among the people and served as a gathering place for the community. The dedication of the temple had a lasting impact on religious practice in Israel, establishing a model for worship that would endure for generations. Solomon's temple continues to be a symbol of faith and spirituality, resonating in religious traditions to this day. Solomon's reign is often considered the golden age of Israel, a period when the nation flourished in various aspects. This cultural and economic flourishing did not arise out of nowhere. It was the result of a series of strategic decisions and effective administration. Prosperity was fueled by the peace that prevailed during his rule, allowing the Israelites to focus on productive activities such as agriculture, trade, and construction. Solomon made important trade alliances, particularly with neighboring nations, which ensured the flow of essential resources and goods. Beyond trade relations, the political stability under Solomon allowed for an environment conducive to the arts and culture. Literature, music, and architecture thrived, reflecting the king's wealth and wisdom. Solomon's temple, for example, was not only a center of worship, but also an architectural masterpiece symbolizing the kingdom's grandeur. Artists and craftsmen from various parts of the world were called upon to contribute their skills, resulting in a cultural synergy that left a lasting legacy. Trade also expanded during this period. Solomon established maritime and land trade routes, connecting Israel to distant nations and facilitating the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures. This exchange not only brought material wealth, but also cultural influences that enriched the lives of the Israelites. Innovations in cultivation techniques and new commercial practices that entered the kingdom expanded Israel's economic base. Solomon's prosperity was not limited to the material aspect. It also extended to social relations. The king promoted justice and equity, establishing a legal system that aimed to protect the most vulnerable in society. This resulted in a sense of community and solidarity among the people, who felt safer and more valued under his leadership. Confidence in institutions and the government contributed to an atmosphere of optimism and hope, hallmark characteristic of this golden age. Finally, it is important to note that Israel's golden age under Solomon also had its controversies. While many enjoyed the benefits of the kingdom, there were those who questioned the cost of this splendor, such as the tax burden and forced labor in large construction projects. However, in the balance of history, The cultural and economic flourishing of this period is often remembered as an example of the potential of wise and visionary leadership. Despite his impressive legacy, Solomon's life and choices did not escape criticism. Many scholars and theologians point to his failures as a leader and the consequences of his actions, which ultimately contributed to the fall of the kingdom. The criticisms often focus on his pursuit of pleasures and wealth, which, according to some, diverted his attention from just governance and the welfare of his people. This criticism is particularly relevant in religious traditions that emphasize the morality and responsibility of leaders. One of the most discussed points is his relationship with women. While his marital alliances were strategic, uniting Israel with neighboring nations, it is also true that he amassed an exorbitant number of wives and concubines. This not only had political implications, but also led to the introduction of foreign cults in Israel, diluting the monotheistic faith of the Israelite people. The influence of these foreign women on Solomon is seen as one of the main reasons that led him away from his initial devotion to the God of Israel, leading to his eventual downfall. Furthermore, criticism extends to his economic administration. While the kingdom prospered, there was also an increase in the tax burden and the exploitation of labor. The construction of grand projects, such as the temple and the royal palace, required substantial resources and labor, often obtained through forced means. This generated discontent among the Israelites, who began to question the justice of a king who prioritized grandeur over the needs of his people. Critics also address the book of Ecclesiastes, which many attribute to Solomon. This text reflects a disenchanted view of life, where he concludes that all is vanity. This perspective of futility raises questions about the true nature of wisdom and wealth. Solomon's own reflection on his life experiences suggest regret for straying from the path of wisdom and virtue, which contrasts sharply with the image of a wise king that he had cultivated. Finally, the criticisms of Solomon's life invite deeper reflection on the role of leadership and the responsibility that comes with power. Solomon's legacy, though filled with achievements, also serves as a warning about the dangers of arrogance, indulgence, and disconnection from the needs of the people. These lessons are as relevant today as they were then, highlighting the importance of leaders who remain humble and committed to the well-being of their nation. The end of the United Kingdom. The disintegration of Solomon's kingdom after his death is a significant event in Israel's history, with profound political and social consequences. After Solomon's death, his son Rehoboam ascended to the throne, but immediately faced significant challenges. The heavy tax burden and forced labor demands during Solomon's reign had generated discontent, and the northern tribes began to question the legitimacy of his rule. The clamor for relief and change intensified, creating a fissure that would become irreparable. When Rehoboam decided to ignore the advice of the elders and chose to harden the tax policy, the dissatisfaction of the northern tribes culminated in the kingdom's separation. The 10 northern tribes rebelled and formed the kingdom of Israel, while only Judah and Benjamin remained loyal to Rehoboam, forming the kingdom of Judah. This schism was not just a territorial division, but also a cultural and religious rupture that would reverberate for generations. The kingdom of Israel, now under Jeroboam's leadership, adopted religious practices that often deviated from the worship of the God of Israel, leading to internal and external conflicts. The political consequences of this division were dramatic. While Solomon had managed to unite the tribes under one banner, his successors faced a fragmented and vulnerable kingdom. The rivalry between Judah and Israel often led to wars and volatile alliances with neighboring nations. instead of the peace and prosperity that characterized Solomon's reign. The resulting political instability weakened the power of the Israelites, making them susceptible to the influence and invasions of foreign powers, such as Assyria and Babylon. Beyond the political implications, the disintegration of the kingdom also had a significant cultural and religious impact. The division resulted in a diversity of religious and social practices that strayed from the unity Solomon had promoted. The tensions between the kingdoms of Judah and Israel were often exacerbated by issues of faith and national identity, creating an environment of rivalry and resentment. This context of division and conflict would become a hallmark of Israelite history in subsequent generations. In the end, the fall of Solomon's united kingdom serves as a warning about the fragility of power and the importance of unity. The lessons drawn from this period of disintegration remain relevant today, reminding us that a nation's true strength lies in its leaders' ability to listen to their people and seek harmony rather than division. Solomon's legacy, therefore, is not just a testament to grand achievements, but also an invitation to reflect on the challenges of leadership and the responsibility it entails. The story of Solomon continues to resonate in contemporary contexts, reflecting not only the complexities of his reign, but also the timeless lessons that can be applied to modern leadership and governance. Solomon's figure is often invoked in discussions about wisdom, justice, and the pursuit of balance between power and responsibility. In a world where political and social decisions profoundly impact people's lives, Solomon's wisdom serves as an ideal to be aspired to. One of the most relevant contemporary interpretations is the pursuit of ethical leadership. Solomon's story, with its failures and successes, highlights the importance of leaders who not only seek wealth and power, but also care about the well-being of their people. The way Solomon handled his alliances and personal choices is often analyzed in debates about integrity and morality in politics. The story reminds us that true leadership goes beyond the accumulation of material goods. It involves the ability to make decisions that benefit society as a whole. Furthermore, the criticism of Solomon's actions, especially regarding his treatment of the northern tribes and his pursuit of pleasures. And so, as we look at Solomon's downfall, we are confronted with a profound truth. Even the wisest can be seduced. The king who received divine wisdom and built a glorious temple ultimately lost his way in his own desires. Have you ever stopped to think about how the pursuit of momentary pleasures can distance us from the greater purpose that God has for us? Solomon, with his 1,000 wives, symbolizes not only the pursuit of love, but also the dangers that arise when we stray from the principles established by God. And you? Are you allowing distractions and temptations to divert your focus? The story of Solomon teaches us that true wisdom lies not in accumulating wealth or pleasures, but in remaining faithful to the divine calling. What lessons can you apply to your life today? Reflect on this. If you wish to accept Christ and begin a journey of faith and transformation, comment below. I accept you, Jesus, as my only and sufficient Lord and Savior of my life. See you next time.